Hello guys, my previous video I am challenging myself to do less grammar classes or less grammar planned classes and more of other activities. And then I was wondering, what other activities have you guys done? Please, in the comment section, let me know which activities have you tried to use when either teaching English or learning English. So some of the activities I have used in my classes include stories. I remember teaching in a school and they used to ask the students to randomly open their randomly check for some news item from either their phones or a newspaper or anything, and even if it's in Turkish, it doesn't matter, and they try to explain it back to me what's happening. So we are straight away having translation skills being developed. So translating news or stories from the news. Besides stories from the news, I've done this with short stories from Turkish famous writers like Nasrettin Hoca. So you could go to Google and check for Nasrettin Hoca's stories and ask the students to translate them. This would be very fun because you directly see the differences between the language and you get to understand languages don't directly translate it into each other. Sometimes the sentence is going to be totally different, but it will have the same meaning. And you'll learn things like, some phrases don't exist in other languages, something like that. So it's an amazing activity. The other thing is blogs. Before we did some blogs, I remember I was working in a school and I used to do blogs with students and they used to love them. And out of the blue, I sometimes forget to do this. I just settle on a grammar book and follow the grammar book with all the energy that I have. This is bad. This is not very good. So I'm working on changing that. So more blogs. We get onto blog, for example, a blog if you're interested in health. For example, I'm interested in skincare. Just get onto any blog that talks about skincare. Actually, before I started making this video, I was researching on benefits of olive oil. So you could write into Google benefits of olive oil and just sit and watch or read. The language is easy in such blogs. And the other thing is pictures. These I do with only kids. I should do more of these with adults because this is an essential skill to develop. And actually, one of the English exams, it's called ICAO. It's for pilots. And one of the activities involves picture description. So I sometimes forget all of these when I'm working with adults and I focus on grammar, grammar, speaking. But we need all of these into the language. Less grammar activities. The other activity is, I made a whole list. I'm looking down because I'm looking at the list. The other activity is debates. These I love because I just sit and we argue about something. This is better. No, this is better. Why is that better? So we exchange ideas. These are amazing. The other thing is games. I've done this before, but again, I did this with kids. The game for this vocabulary is very easy. I will briefly explain it, or you could research more about it. It's called the Loki technique. I have heard this in so many memory strengthening skills, something like that. I'm not so sure how to explain this. I'll get into details when I'm making the other video about these techniques in details. But the Loki, I think that's the pronunciation, the Loki technique, or the game I played before with my students. Let's not get into the technique. The game I played with my students was, we find 5 vocabularies. For example, the word is shoe, blue, tree, cat, and house. So these words are random words. You simply sit and try to make a story, but the story must have all the words. This way you use the vocabulary that you know to learn these new words, and then you incorporate it into a sentence, which means you never forget it. I'll explain that in details in some other video. I'm going to make a video about these learning techniques, but try to play games with vocabulary rather than simply translating. What's the meaning of blue? Mavi. What's the meaning of red? Kumzi. Less of that, please. And my students, in case you're watching this, remind me anytime you see I'm going hard on the grammar. Please remind me. I'm human. I forget sometimes. The other thing is movies. Movies, when I was learning Turkish, I learned through movies. When I was learning English, I learned through movies because I've never been to England. I've never been to the US. But hey, I can speak English, which means I learned through movies. You can also learn from movies, and fellow teachers, you can teach through movies. How can you do this? A student watches a movie, they explain it to you, you speak about it. Amazing. They don't have to write the new words because this is boring, this is tiring. If you're watching a movie and pause and write the new word, don't do that. Just watch and continue. You don't need to feel like you're in class. Just enjoy your video or your movie. The other thing is music. I've done this many times with my students. I'm not very good at singing, but yeah, I sometimes get into the singing thing, and this is a good thing. There is one of my students I just started working with. We've been having classes for 2 months, and she usually has 1 hour per week, and her improvement is tremendous because we've only done stories. I got her into reading a lot of stories from the beginning when she had zero knowledge about English. So lots of stories. She has, we've done with her lots, not lots, but we've done some singing. We've done some, what else did we do? We just began grammar, I think 2 weeks, like trying to explain, because she was asking questions like, what's the difference between him and his? Both of them have onu, ona. I was like, yeah, there is a slight difference. So lots of music, lots of movies. And the other thing is storytelling. You can tell a story from one language or to the other, or if you find short stories, they can read the story and then tell you the story, or write down what happened in the story, because they have learned new words. They need to use them. And the other one is poems. I've used this with kids still, but I need to use it with adults. Adults, please, if you're watching this and you're a language learner, my student or not, any language learner, get into poetry. It's not cliche, it's essential for your heart. The other thing is mind maps. I love these because, well, there is more pictures and more colors. I love colors, like you see. There are so many colors around me. And the other thing is skimming. Skimming, how can you do this? You find, I don't have something that to show, but for example, let's say this is a story, like lots of things. You quickly look at it, look at some words, and try to guess what the story is about. You don't sit and read and read and read line per line, understand every detail. You simply skim through really quickly, and then you guess what's it about. So I need to do more of this activity. And how can you do it in case you want to do it? Just grab any article, any story, anything written in the language you are trying to learn, and quickly look at the beginnings, the endings, and everything, and then try to write down ideas about what you think this story is about. For example, if you read quickly and you see, okay, I think it's about this and this and this. And then after, you will go back and read slowly, line per line, and then you will try to see what you guessed and what you've just read. Is it the same thing or not? Were you close? Did you understand the topic even before you read the whole thing or not? So this is a great way to train your memory to quickly understand instead of sitting and focusing and trying to understand every single word. Because, for example, when somebody speaks to me in Turkish, I don't understand all the 100 words used. I just understand a few and I guess what happened. So if you train your brain to understand like this, next time somebody speaks to you in English, you will not try to understand every single word, because before you've done that skimming technique and you noticed you can guess. And the more you do this activity, the better you'll become at guessing the main idea. Sometimes people go for job interviews and they tell me, I went for a job interview and I panicked and I couldn't speak. Why does this happen? Because they go for a job interview and the interviewer asks them a question. And first of all, they're stressed because it's a job interview. Job interviews are stressful. Second, they try to understand every single word. When you try to understand every single word, if you do not understand even just one word, your brain is going to be stressed. What's happening? What's that word? You'll try to remember it, and the person interviewing you is staring at you. You get into a more stressful situation. So, skimming is a very good way to tell your brain, chill. We can understand without understanding, without reading every single word or understanding every single word that's told to us. So more of this skill, more of this skill. The other one is, I think I mentioned this. The other one is asking my questions. I've told this to some of my students to write down a list of questions they want to ask me, because sometimes students come to class and they sit and look at you and you say, hey, how are you? They're like, I'm fine. What did you do today? They're like, I did this. They look at you. How was your day? It was good. So it's like I ask, they answer. I ask, they answer. It has to be two-way. If you haven't watched my videos about how to ask questions or how to answer in details, these videos will be very good for you, because it's very important to know how to ask questions. When somebody says, how are you? I'm good. How about you? How was your day? Oh, it was great. How was yours? So it becomes a conversation. The other thing is role play. I do this with students, but we need to do more of it. There are times when I forget and just follow the book, the grammar book. I'm gonna throw that away, I think. And the other thing is tongue twisters. I think when we are kids, we learn how to speak languages using tongue twisters. And we do this, who can say it faster? Let's say it again. Let's do this again. And you do the tongue twister and do the tongue twister. It's fun and it's training, it's educative, and you learn something. When you're doing tongue twisters, you don't have to understand whatever all the words that are in that tongue twister. Just say it and move on. When I was learning Turkish, I printed out a list of tongue twisters and put it on my fridge. Every time I went to the fridge, I would say one tongue twister and then pick something from the fridge. So if I need an orange, I go to the fridge read one tongue twister out aloud, get the orange, close the fridge and go. When I get there, I need water. I go, say one tongue twister, and that was the code to open the fridge. You could also challenge yourself in that way, because if it's somewhere where you can access it, then you can say it and it becomes a game. And the good thing about putting it on your fridge is because, well, after you have finished that list, throw it away. You've learned something. And the other thing is jokes. Now, I think my Turkish classes were missing this, because I didn't learn any jokes. And up to today, when I see the memes on the internet, I don't really understand what they mean, because the language used there is a little bit different. So I need to find appropriate jokes for my students, and we need to do more of those, so that when they see a joke in English, they understand it. When they see a story, they understand it. When they see music, they enjoy listening to the music, so that they enjoy all the things that are part of a language. Language is not only grammar. Language is not only about grammar. It's about so many beautiful things like movies, music, poetry, tongue twisters, jokes. I'm still developing this list, and while I'm making this series of teaching techniques or learning techniques, I will be sharing with you when I add to the list, because so far, I will show you this. I have, I've only added those, and I will update you when I update my list. For now, thanks a lot. In the comment section, please let me know. Are you a teacher? What activities have you used in your class? Are you a language learner? What activities has your language instructor used in your classes? And maybe you've seen these activities somewhere else. You've never participated, but you've seen them somewhere else. Please add them to the comment section, and let's exchange ideas. Let's make the learning and teaching thing easy. It shouldn't be difficult. Bye-bye. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, please.